All right, well, that's okay. Let's go with this. And so first I want to say thank you so very much for coming and playing with me for the very first time of going live on Facebook and also sharing some of your experiences that you've had and studying with me in the last few months. So thank you, Brianna Wheeler.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited.
Good, good. Yeah, I'm really happy to have you. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you was because in the program, I could just tell that you were really excelling with what we were doing, what I was teaching, your application of what I was teaching, and you were very diligent in your work in the program. So of course I always love that as a teacher, right? Because I know that that person is going to take away so much more than somebody who's maybe not fully committed. So yeah.
Yes.
So yeah. So tell me, well, tell all of us, what was your focus before you, I mean, you're still focused on what you were doing before you came into the program, but what is the work that you do in the world so people understand where you came in from and that sort of piece? Yeah.
Yeah. So I am, for the last 7 years, have been an equine craniosacral therapist. So I have my hands on horses all day. I work on like 20 horses a week. And so I'm already in their field all the time. And then I also work on humans and do some somato-emotional release work and things with them as well. So, and before that, I was a horse shoer. So I've been in the realm of horses forever, really. And so this was just the next step in the journey.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of time with horses, a lot of time with horses in different ways. You know, I imagine when you're a farrier, like my farrier actually just pulled up and I've never seen a farrier work so fast as he does. I mean, and he does a really good job, but he's focused. There's a goal. He's going for it. He's getting something done. And then you switch over to cranial sacral, which is, well, you're there to offer healing and to create a space for healing to happen, which is really different than being a farrier, right?
So different. It's a completely different field. And I think that's why the being a horseshoer was such a great experience, but it wasn't resonating with, I think, for me. And then going into the cranial sacral, it is such a different rhythm to be in there. And, I think being with horses, there's a certain neutrality in any aspect of it, but it's a transition from shoeing horses to doing the body work and healing work.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that. And then of course you've had this third step of taking my level one online. So then that's a progression also. And I know personally for myself that the concept of progression in one's life work is something to really honor and to accept. I've coached a lot of people who get super frustrated that they're progressing, that they're experiencing this one occupation and exploration, and then they're going to the next level, and then they're going to the next level. And I remember one time for myself, I had taken so many different trainings, and I'm just like, what is this all about, right? Where am I really going with all this? And then eventually they all build on each other. And then the person who's patient and can master all of those different things that they've been involved with takes it all together and offers something really incredibly unique to the world. So you're right on that journey, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, and that's like what you said. It is just like this was like the next step for me of where am I going with all of this and like the building blocks, of all the things coming together. And so this was like that next step that kept calling me.
Yeah, beautiful. So tell me, when you say this was the next step that was calling me, so how did you end up getting attracted to the work that I'm doing and into this level one? Like, I'm not really sure if I remember exactly how that happened for you.
So honestly, probably 2 years ago is when I started just being curious about it. And I went to sign up for your like January retreat to just experience it because I've never even experienced it, but I've heard many things about it and I just was been really drawn to it. So I went to sign up for that retreat and I ended up not being able to go. And so I transferred it to your Horses Alchemist because I was like, well, I'll go to this one then. And because of, I can't remember, I couldn't go for some reason. And then
It
so
was
this
COVID.
third,
It was
yeah, it was
because of COVID.
COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so it got switched twice. So 3 times I've tried to do this and it didn't happen. And then you put this, online class on, and I was like, that was just like that gut feeling, where I was like, these didn't work out because I'm just supposed to dive right in, and not go experience it, just dive right into it. And so, so I ended up there.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you feel like there was something, you did the farrier work and then you're doing this cranial sacral work with horses, which is beautiful, beautiful work. What was it that you saw in the level 1 training or this coaching with horses process that you wanted to experience? Like what pulled you in?
Working with horses in a different way was one of the things, is being able to be hands off of them and bringing people in. I love the work that I do, but I wanted to bring the people aspect into it too, and letting people be in the realm of horses in this way and being able to offer that to people. And so, being able to just give more, to people too with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. I bet that you experienced, even in working with the horses with the cranial sacral, that a lot of times the energy that they were holding that would come through for you to help to move it and to heal was probably quite often some of the owner's energy, right?
For sure. And, and being hands-on so much, you realize, and especially when I get like a duo where like I work on the client and the horse and they're mirrors, so if there's a right shoulder, then I just like, I work and I come back and it's still the same, you have to look at the owner, and, and most of the time it's something they're holding, or, and the horses, they hold that for us. And, they're so graceful that way. And, so you see that a lot.
Yeah, I know in my book, The Hope from the Heart of Horses, I write about that with the women up in Canada. And I didn't really know that much about riders and posture. And, I had been away from horses for years because I had been thrown and dragged. And I remember I wrote about the woman who, when she was riding the horse, I could just see like this bar across her shoulders and how stiff it was. She was just holding there, right? And I was a body worker, so I could read human bodies really easily. And then I could see also this horse was trying to move forward and the shoulders weren't moving the same way. I didn't know what it was. I didn't have the vocabulary for it, but I could see, oh, her shoulders. And now look at this horse's shoulders. And I wasn't doing healing on horses. I had been a life coach for years. So I just worked with her. And then after she released that, she got back on the horse and she went cantering away. And of course, as we all know, the ending to the story, the horse was no longer showing any sort of restriction in his body.
It's beautiful.
Isn't that fascinating? It's just
yes,
so more interconnected than what we realize. And sometimes even when we realize it in our everyday life, we forget, right?
most definitely we do. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, when you first came into the program, you learned a lot of tools and you started to apply them to your own relationship with the horses. What happened for you in that process?
Wow. So it was, the first couple of weeks, it was more getting these tools and building on them. And it was quite an experience. Highs and lows of it, diving into new territory anyway, but this kind of work it's deep work. And so it brought a lot of stuff up for me going into it, and having to really take that time to be in that and become more aware of, even things I'm holding and things that I was not aware of that it brings so much of it to the surface for me. And being so, like I said, like taking the hands off and taking a step back and not being in that field and that healing and taking this and not being like in the body work setting and taking this and like co-facilitating really, it's a different experience for sure for me.
Yeah. So when you first went out to the horses and you started to practice being more centered in your body and being more in the present moment, instead of, I mean, I was a healer and a body worker also. And when we're in that particular field of intention and field of energy, we show up a particular way. And I think one of the shifts that you made early on was, okay, I'm not here to heal the horse. I'm here to be in my own body with the horse.
Yeah. And, you know, in doing that, taking that step back, because I remember that so profoundly that as soon as I was hands off and looking at this in a whole different way and not being, you know, like the healer, yeah, it really is a different perception of me in my own, just my own body, and being with the horses in a different way and connecting with them in a different way and finding where you're such in this bubble when you're doing body work and it all just like goes and is smooth. And when I'm hands off, I was like, whoa, you know, it's, you have to take a step back and it just changed my perspective on that.
And so when you took that step back and you became more in your own field and in your own body and deepening your own awareness of how you were carrying your own energy, how did the horses respond to you? Did it shift how they responded to you?
For sure. And at the beginning, I think it's doing the steps and things. Yeah, it was almost, it changed so much from the beginning and like, what are we doing? You know, like as these steps were just like, what are we doing? And like, what does all this really mean? And just seeing how the horses respond, even when I don't even know what I was doing some of the times, but yeah, just becoming more in my body and how the horses respond to that. They shift. The more that I shifted, the more that the horses shift.
And what kind of shift did you see, if I'm not being too exact? Yeah, because I know you're an observer.
I know. So the shift that I saw was, you know, at first, because when I'm not hands-on, I'm pretty empathic too and high sensitive. And so I felt more, you know, I felt so much more emotions and theirs plus mine, you know, and all of it. And so I almost was a little more, I could tell the horses were a little more resistant with me at first. And that was, I think, just the turmoil in me having to kind of get on board with everything we were doing. And as that progressed, they relaxed and they were just so much more willing. And I noticed how much that was because it was me, you know, I was becoming more in my body and more in tune with the things we were doing. And then they're more willing.
Yeah. So can I reflect back to you what I think I'm hearing you say?
Yes, please. You know me in words.
I think what I'm hearing you say is that when you first got into the program, it was a mindset shift, first off, that no longer were you going to be creating the healing space for the horse to be healed, but you had to shift into, okay, now I'm going to come into my own body and really create a healing space for myself by being more present. And through that process, obviously others heal too, but you had to come into your own body. And what I'm hearing is that because there was so much to learn in the beginning, there were these new things to learn and new ways to process within inside of yourself, that there was some levels of frustration or just, you know, learning new stuff. And the horses didn't really respond very positively to you, or they didn't really engage with you as they usually did. But then once, and correct me if I'm wrong, but then once you kind of get the mojo, right? Once you got into the flow, once you were like, oh, okay, I got it. Yeah. Then they changed how they were with you. Is that correct?
Yes. And when you were saying that, I just am remembering one of the conversations we had too, because at the beginning, when I took hands off, I was telling you that it was really shocking to me how much like how hard the first time going into my body was. And I wasn't even aware, because when I'm in that realm with the horses and in that body work, you know what, you almost check that, like it, and so I don't feel that. But when I was hands off, it was like it was a hard like thunk for me to like come back into my body. And so, yeah, there was definitely an integration period for me of getting back in and reconnecting with the horses again, and myself.
Yeah, like reconnecting with yourself and then connecting with the horses from that particular place versus in that healing space.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that this is so common for so many high empaths. I know for me as a body worker, people would walk into the massage room where I would, do my body work on people, and they'd walk in the door and I could feel everything that they were bringing into the room and where they were in their body and where the pain was. And to some degree, I would leave myself to be the caregiver for them, to provide them the relief, to provide them the healing. And I think that as healers and empaths and high sensitives, we learn how to do this at a very young age. We become kind of the glue in environments. We become that person that can read things and then kind of try to keep things moving in a particular way or take care of people. And what we don't realize is that we develop this pattern of leaving ourselves. And I remember when I was in massage school, they were like, well, just ground. Like, oh, okay, what's that, right? I had no reference point for it. So I would kind of pretend that I was grounded or say that I was grounded, but I actually was never really truly in my body. I thought that I was in my body, but I wasn't truly in my body until I started to use these tools that I taught you in level 1 with the horses. And then all of a sudden, like you're saying, it's like my body woke up, or I woke up to my body and I came back home to my body. And I think that there's more people experiencing, especially the high empaths, this ability to not feel themselves so that they can actually feel everything else around them. Yeah. So I think that's definitely something that we don't realize until we realize it, right?
Yeah, I had no idea. And I remember you saying at the beginning, you were like, you think you're in your body until you start this work, and and you're going to realize how much you're not in your body. And I was like, she's so right.
Yeah. And it's so important as a healer, because I'm sure that now that you're through the program, or the level 1 aspect at least, and you're doing some of the work now, I'm going to imagine or propose that you now know the distinction between when you're in your body and when you're out of your body. So now when you're going and doing the cranial sacral work with the horses, are you finding that you're present to them and present to the energy in a different way?
Yeah. And I already felt connected in my own way. And then bringing my body into it, it almost has, the energy's expanded, but it's almost, but I can tell, this is mine, this is yours, and so I have more awareness now of all that. And, when the horses already responded like well, but now I can see a deeper connection with them in the way that they respond, and the way that they'll just really like blend and meld into the work. And just because I am so much more present.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. They do really shift when they know that people are present at the level that you're talking about with them. I mean, they're still these beautiful, amazing creatures, and it's always shocking to me how not present human beings can be with horses and how generous they can be with us. Sometimes not so generous, right? But when we get super centered and in our bodies in this grounded way that you've gone to, that you jumped in and said, hey, I'm gonna have this at a whole different level, then all kinds of different levels of understanding each other opens up. Yeah.
Absolutely does.
So how was it for you to then shift from offering body work 2 horses or 4 horses into, okay, now I'm going to bring a human being in and they're going to work with this horse and I'm going to coach them through this process. How was that for you to learn how to do that?
Wow. I went into this program knowing it was going to be a little out of my comfort zone there's just so many aspects to it. And to take bring people into it and the horses and myself, it was a lot. I lost my train of thought though when I was talking.
But we're talking about what it was like for you to come into this work. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a shift for me, and it was it was uncomfortable at first. But I wanted that. I wanted to get out of a comfort zone of where I was at and be in this different element with everybody. And, I loved it. I loved it. It seemed so challenging at first to me. And then when you just keep remembering that it's not just me, and that the horses are here too. And it just takes a big weight off. And you realize how much that you can just get into a flow with it and just trust that the horses are going to be there. And people love the horses, that's, I'm there, but they're there for the horses anyway. So when I was thinking that I'm like messing up or I'm doing it wrong or, I'm not saying the right things, but the horses are there. And so it seemed to me like it was just, sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't think that went well, but it never ended up being like that. It always just flows. And, and I give so much credit to the equines for that.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you credit for that too, because you did your own work with being in your body and being present at a different level. And yeah, when we're learning, we're with that client and horse and we're nervous. So our mind's a little bit more busy, but then, as we keep practicing, it shifts into a more body-centered presence, just like the horse. And so then really what happens is that there's 2 horses. The human being has learned how to be a horse, and then the horse is being a horse. And then there's the client, right? That's on their path to deepening into their body. And so my sense of you for the different things that you shared in the class was that you hit those points in those sessions where you were able to get, and we talked about the 0 point, right? Where you're just in that place of pure presence and the healing happens. But it's through being present in the body. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as soon as I'm present within myself, it just flows so much better. And, it's just so much more connected work when you're in your body.
So, I will be transparent and let everybody know I gave you a few questions before this interview just to have you prep a little bit, but I said, don't create a script. We're going to wing it. But I didn't put this question on your script. So if you can answer it, great. But if you're feeling too put on the spot or you can't, that's fine too. But I'm wondering, you did several practice sessions during the program. And do you remember any one particular incident where the horse did something that struck you, or there was an energy that you felt or an exchange between the horse and the client during those sessions?
Yeah, there's one coming to me right now. And I was working with this woman, and it started to, in my own perspective, I don't think anybody else thought this, but like it seemed rocky at first, like trying to bring her into her body. And there's just this moment. So this woman kept like leaving the horse, and she'd like walk away, and she was just like, she was done. And so I'd have to bring her back, and keep bringing her back to the session and to the horse. And, and it's not always like words are not usually my thing. So having to do that. And I remember I'm outside of the round pen and I'm walking back and forth and walking back and forth. And I was like, I just finally realized. And I remember you saying something about like, if you're doing something like, and, it may not be you. And so I'm like walking back and forth and walking back and forth. And I finally like just looked at her and I was like, and I just brought her back to her body. And she said she went directly to her feet. And she was like, I just feel like I need to move forward. And I was like, well, then move forward. And she starts, and this horse is like all the way on the other side of the round pen. He's just been kind of hanging out on his own this whole time. Is, licking and chewing a little bit, but just pretty much just away. And she starts walking. And as soon as she puts her first foot forward, this horse perked his head up, walked right by her, and he walked around this whole round pen with her. And I'm getting goosebumps. It was not something you could ever plan or like control, and it was just like getting her to that point where she was feeling something and just allowing that to happen. And that horse just immediately was just like, yes, I will go forward with her anywhere. And
Yeah,
it was beautiful.
yeah. And that's one of those just such delicious moments. I mean, here's a person, here's a horse at liberty. That horse gets to do whatever they want. And through that process that you took her through, that step-by-step process of helping her come back home to her body, she spoke a truth and owned it, and then took that action to align with it. And that congruency just pulled that horse right in to share that experience. That is so beautiful. I don't remember you sharing that in class.
I haven't shared that one with you yet.
Yeah, those moments are so delicious because it's like you said, you can't orchestrate that. You can't make that horse do that. You can't even promise that client that they're going to have that experience because we just don't know what that client's going to get, what is really going to happen for them in that communication and that dance that they're having with the horse. Yeah. Yeah. So this might put you on a spot a little bit too, but do you remember what the client got from that experience?
So I kind of do. So when she actually like went in, like it wasn't, everything that she got at the end was not really what she came in with. Yeah. And so this, I think, was like a thing for her. She felt very stuck in life, like where she was at, and it was like she was in fear of going forward. And I don't even think she really realized that as much until this moment when she was like, I'm at my feet. And she's like, just felt really stuck and she wanted to go forward. And like light bulbs went off for her and realizing like where she was actually stuck at and having that momentum to go forward and realizing that.
And that she actually probably broke the pattern, the psychological pattern in her body, and the way her mind has been working in her nervous system around moving forward, because it came up, she felt it, and she moved forward. And the horse validated that by walking side by side with her. So that's like a whole shift in a pattern, shift in a perspective, right there live, happening within the body, within the mind. That's really beautiful. Yeah. Really, really beautiful.
It was a really cool experience. And I wanted to really just like jaw drop when it happened, and you're just like neutral.
Just looking like, hey, this is every day.
Big deal.
Well, I'll be honest with you, sometimes in sessions, I am so touched by the depth and the heartfelt connection and expression and energy that I feel with the horses. There's this level of communion. There's a whole different vibration of when we hit those moments where there's the shift that happens and there's an offering from the horse. I still cry. I still tear up. I still am in wonder. It's, I often say to people, I'm a pretty high creative. I get bored pretty easily. And so I've been doing this work for 18 years, right? So that says something about the work. It's hard to get bored working with horses. I mean, and in this way, you just you never know where the magic's going to happen, right?
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, yeah. So Brianna, how has stepping into this work, saying, okay, this is my next step. I'm going to do this online program. Okay, I'm in the program. Now I'm going to do this work, even if I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, or okay, now this step. How has that dedication that you've had in doing it changed your life? What do you see different in your world because of not only what you've learned in your own body, but also in working with people this way?
Well, I think for sure that it's brought me into the present moment in everyday life, for sure with that, and being able to offer something for people to do the same. Um, it's just profound to me to be able to take that, and I feel like my whole connection with horses and nature and even just people in general has just expanded and deepened so much through all of that.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm hearing for you, there's a whole opening at a whole other different level of connection.
Yeah, and I don't know that that's what I was looking for, when I wanted to expand on what I was doing or what was missing, but that's what it's happened, is just deepened my connection, just with my surroundings in general, and being more present and listening. I think listening, and hearing, yeah, just listening and hearing people has really, I don't think that I didn't not listen before, but really, really like deeply listen to somebody.
And do you have a sense of how that may have changed your relationships?
Yeah, people really, they become more present too. And, yeah, it's definitely changed my relationship. And even being able to like hear somebody say something and mirror it back to them, it's so cool to be able to hear somebody and listen that deeply. And I can do that. And people really appreciate that when you can look at them and be present, and it's very safe too, and they feel heard. And I think that it happens a lot where we are in so many different areas, and we're not just present with somebody, and it really, I think that's really special to be able to do that with people.
I think that you're spot on with that. I think culturally we're being pulled away from that skill, away from that ability, because again, like you said, we're drawn in so many different directions continually throughout the day, right? Not even the day, through the moment, through the second, we can get pulled here, there, look at this, look at that. And we're being conditioned not to be present in our bodies, not to be in our home where we can know our own knowing and have our own intuition, and therefore also have our self-direction in the world. And
Yes.
it's kind of a way of controlling people, right? Keep them really busy, and then we have control over them because we can tell them what to do.
Yes. And allowing people to come back to themselves and realize these things for themselves and put them in the positions to be able to. And I think that's what, for me at least, I think that's one aspect of what this work does is brings people back to that. And then they can find out for themselves, like, wow, like I really am like scattered and all over the place and not present and doing so many things.
And then they can find their own truth. They can find what's really true for their life direction. And it changes everything when we come back home. And the horse, I think, models the ability to be home in the body and home in one's psyche more than humans can, especially this day and age. So I love that you have said that, you've become a better listener and you're hearing things differently. And it's because you've opened up your body in a different way. You've become what I call more acoustical in your nature, just like a horse is. And people do need that. I think it's one of the secret ingredients for the future, right? Those people who, no matter what profession you're doing in the world, the people who master how to be truly present are the ones that are going to be successful in their contributions. Because if we can't be present, we're really not going to be able to be the change maker that we may be wanting to be. Yeah, don't you think?
Oh my, yes. So much yes.
Yeah. And so then when we get with the horses who are so present, right? And then as a facilitator, when we can match that level of presence that they're operating or offering, I should say, man, that's just a really safe container for people to come back home to themselves. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And safe is such a good word because it's deep work, and to be able, you can do it without horses, but the horses really do just offer that container for people to let down some guards and go into themselves and feel, safe and held in that space. And that really drew me to this work as well, is just because, and probably because for me, like horses have always been that for me, and such a safe space. And I've always been able to just be more me with horses. And so I love that this can offer that to other people too.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. So anything else that you would like to share about your your exploration of this work and your experience of being with horses in this way?
Mm. It really changed so I already, we had discussed this before, but just doing the body work and like, even bringing horses back to, we have such a control in our society over horses and the way that we've put them in these boxes. And be doing this work has just like intensified that for me, and how much like horses need advocates, like people need, like, it's just really brought my connection with them even deeper. And I felt like it was already quite deep, but it really just seeing them and their beauty and being in their natural environments and being allowed to be free and be who they are and not in so much control. And so it's just like deepened that for me and strengthened that, where I just want to spread the word to everybody to, like, let's look at that, like, let's look at these aspects of the horses that we're kind of just putting them in these boxes and not letting them, free their voices too and their bodies. And
Yeah.
so this work really showed me that even more, and how much they're such, they're so willing, even with all the things we do, they're so willing, and that just, they're just so pure, and it just deepens that for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think they're highly appreciative when they get to be a teacher and a healer in this way, completely at liberty with people and making their own choices about how and when they're going to interact, and how it honors their beingness, not what they can provide for us, not what they're going to do for us, not how they're going to reward us through their physical form, but instead how we want to partner with them at a more spiritual level and honor them as a sentient being. I know my horses, they've been doing it for years now, so they're quite masterful. And I just can't even imagine my horses now going back to being treated like regular horses, for lack of better words.
Yes.
They would just be like, what? No, I'm a teacher.
I'm going to pass.
I'll pass on that. I'm here
Yeah.
to show you my wisdom. And I think that they've all been wanting that and offering that. It's just now, and this whole movement in this type of work has been going on now for many, many years, but now it's really exploding, and it's beautiful to see. And even within the work, there's layers of consciousness of how are we partnering with horses in the equine facilitated learning work that's pure or not pure, right?
Yeah. And that's a good point for me too, is like, that's why I was really drawn to just your ways of doing it too, is because it's at liberty. And so horses have a choice at all times. And I really respect that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, beautiful, Brianna. Anything else that you might like to put to words or to share? Or?
No, I mean, just thank you. I mean, thank you for the opportunity. And I'm so glad that you put it online. And I think it's set up really incredible online as well. And being able to take everything you're doing and put it this way and reaching more people, it's just amazing.
Yeah, it's been shocking to me actually, because I've resisted going online for years and years and years. I mean, when I first started, people were asking me, over in Europe, like 16 years ago, won't you create an online program? I was like, no, I want to be in person with the horses, and you can't do it online. And then with COVID, I was like, okay, well, I gotta, buck up and be adaptable like my Mustang was when he was brought in, and learn this new world that we're living in. And it's actually proven me wrong. And I love that I've been proven wrong, because what I've seen on the online is people are going deeper in their own work. And there's something about maybe being with their own horses and being at home and being in that familiar space, and then deepening into their relationship with their own horse, and then bringing people in. There's a different dynamic there. And then maybe because it's a little bit at a time over the 8 weeks, instead of trying to jam it all in on site in 6 days, there's a different level of integration that's happening for people. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. And then I get to meet people like you, right, that I wouldn't meet otherwise. And then I know you're going out there and you're doing your beautiful work in the world, and you're changing how people are viewing these magnificent beings. You're helping people see that they're not just an object, that they're not just a means to an end. They're just not something that gives us a blue ribbon, that they're beautiful, intelligent beings that want to help us to learn how to live in a different way that's very counter to the direction that we're going. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I wouldn't have been able, it probably wouldn't not happen so quickly for me to come do this work if it wasn't online. So yeah, I'm glad, I'm so happy that I get to do this, and yeah, just take more of this out to the world and bring more people into the horses. And yeah, I'm really grateful.
Great. Well, gosh, thank you so much for coming and playing for the very first live interview. I can't believe I actually figured out the technology. And, you can tell I'm not all about technology, but you've been a great sport to come and play live with me, and to kind of, like we said earlier, let's not do a script. Let's just kind of wing it and see.
Yeah. That's my favorite. So I'm very appreciative. Yeah, I'm very appreciative.
Excellent. Well, I know that we're going to continue to work together. We are already doing that. So it'll be fun to watch your progression as you deepen even further. And it's now a never-ending journey of raising consciousness and deepening into the heart of the horse. So thank you, Brianna Wheeler. You're wonderful.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you so much.
We'll see you soon, okay?
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.